We're
Work is
here to
work.
hang.
Yep.
I'm going to start hanging on live streams to do work, which is going to be pretty fun.
I want to get back into that myself. Yeah.
Well, it's like I'm literally sitting here just doing stuff for devtools. I'm like, why would I not stream it? Because it's actually pretty cool.
Double dip, right?
Exactly. Okay, Chris, did you volunteer yourself?
Sure.
I love it. What is your... Hold on, I have to learn how to use GitHub. I'm just kidding. Oh, I just have to remember. Ryan, it was you that I was chatting with, right? When I was like, I've encoded since like 2016 in a serious way. Is that you? I think you're muted somehow.
We lost your audio. Nope.
Still going.
Well, when we can hear Ryan again, we should probably do a round of introductions as well.
That's a great idea. I'm horrible at that stuff. I'm a bad community leader in that way.
Well, yeah.
I was waiting for the right time to jump in and say hi. So that's perfect.
I'm sorry. Jump in anytime. I apologize there.
I'm Chris, Principal Software Engineer, Live Oak Bank. Been doing full stack dev, 8 or 9 years. And prior to that, I was a JavaScript UI architect. Did a lot of Angular JS back in the day, if you remember that awful thing. Done a little bit of everything.
Love that. Chris is also a very lovely steward for my business and has provided feedback on many occasions, which has been really valuable.
You don't need much. You are on such a great trajectory.
But hey, if feedback's where it's at, right? That's how you get better.
True.
Matt, you want to jump in? Introduce yourself to all of us, although I know you. But
yeah, good to meet everyone. I'm Matt. I just actually joined a new company, Propel Auth, as their first developer advocate.
Exciting.
And yeah, very exciting. I'm also doing kind of like a part-time contract with Phaser. They provide like a 2D web game engine.
Very familiar with Phaser.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I started that at just a couple months before, and then ended up in this role. So I'm currently trying to keep them both going. Also for many reasons, but also because it's kind of dev tools but different use cases. And so I'm trying to. I figured the more the merrier for like trying out different experiments, different ways to reach these different audiences that ultimately are still like web developers. So yeah, great to meet everyone. Tessa, I kind of just know you from following you on Twitter, and I've also previously worked at Ionic and kind of just been in this kind of product marketing PM space of DevTools. So when I saw that you've kind of launched your own thing and like this content you've been putting out, just getting increasingly interested in connecting with you and like just learning just, of course, different strategies, tactics, and especially around the DevTools space. So so excited to be here. Thank you.
Love that.
I will interrupt and ask a question. You said you're the first developer advocate at Propel Auth. What does that look like in getting started for that? That's such a unique position to be in, because they believed enough to open the role, but everybody is skeptical of the first. So how do you be the first?
That is a great question. This is the first time that I'm the first. So a lot of it is TBD, but
And that's a testament to your skills. So take pride in that.
Yeah, definitely.
Get a good therapist.
I'm just I'm here for the compliments. This is great. They were hiring they actually put up a job rec for like a technical content creator. So not DevRel specifically. So basically we want someone that can crank out some blog posts, X number a month. And of course you have to have dev skills. There's a lot behind that than like just content. But how I saw that and pitched it to him was, hey, I come from a much broader skill set in product marketing and DevTools, DevRel. So pick me, right? And so they did. So basically, like, we can do so much more. So I literally this is the end of my second week. So we'll see how this will evolve. Currently starting with just writing some blog posts as I learn the product, and I think that's a good entryway. But
nothing wrong with that.
Honestly, I know there's a lot of challenges with DevRel sometimes in different companies. Fortunately, like when I was at Ionic and then here, I think I have founders and just a general space where they understand the value. So I'm actually not concerned with sort of that whole conversation we've seen or experienced of like articulating the value of DevRel. I think they get it, especially when we're in our audiences, developers, like devtools tends to be. So I'm not even concerned about that. I'm mostly just thinking about, and the challenge is how to scale myself, how to have an impact. Also why this is relevant, why I joined, but mostly just thinking about, going beyond the current work I'm doing now, like tidying up the docs, writing some articles, which are still really valuable. I think longer term, I'm thinking about different things like, video, social media, just trying to reach more devs. This is a smaller startup, and competitors are like Clerk, Auth0, Okta, much larger names. So a lot of it is just awareness. And so that's kind of my first thought for what I'm focusing
on. To not steal too much time of Tessa's call, I'll call out one suggestion would be, and just like what we're about to do with Arcjet, show that pathway to being able to use the thing. Because like when you look at Auth0, Auth0 streamlined it really, really well in the last year or so. But, if you think about Auth0 3 years ago, it was brutal. You would spend, 3 hours beating your head on the desk until it worked. And, now they're a lot better and they have great tutorials and so forth. But, look at how they fill those tutorials with your client ID and secret values, things like that. Take that same behavior, because that'll, no pun intended, propel you guys.
Agreed. I threw a little tip in there too. David joined us, and Rin and Ido. Like, this is so exciting. I'm going to start the actual Arcjet sort of deciphering, but then I would love for new folks to dive in. But let me just kick this off, and then I want everyone to be able to like engage. This is not you can definitely stay muted and stay off video if that's your choice, but I never want folks to feel like they can't jump in. So this is a space where your voice should be heard, and feel free to raise your hand with the icon if you don't feel comfortable just jumping in. And I will prioritize those. So to kick us off, I'm so glad y'all joined. If you've been to one of these before, I think Ryan, you may be.
I have.
Yeah.
Been to a couple. And is my mic working? Yes.
Yes, it is. It is.
Awesome.
Yes, it's working great. So I guess differently from what we've done in the past. In the past, we've brought up the homepage and we've just let it sort of guide us where it takes us. We've had a fun conversation. One of them that should have been recorded wasn't. Ryan, they came back and was like, "Hey, we want to work with you." And I was like, "Shoot, I wish I could give you the audit we went through because your homepage messaging just didn't land." And so I think they're working on all that stuff, which is exciting. So in the past, we've done that. I have realized, which was great and awesome, very engaging. I want to continue that same sentiment, but I also want to guide a little bit more, because the intent of these is to also teach. Like, how can I teach others to think about developer experience if you're in that space or want to get into the space, or if you're like David, right? David can help instill some really great experience, right? And some things that he's seen because he's been in DevRel for a number of years as well. And so that's more of the intent. So with that, I just want to share that. Yeah, David, feel free to jump in if you have a comment you want to add.
Yeah, I actually also, I'll have to dig out the GitHub link, but I built a project using Arcjet.
Ooh, yes, you did say that on social. Do you want to throw that in the chat if you're willing to share it? That is, I know you had said.
Let me go hunt it down. It's I believe it's I made a sarcastic chatbot. So
I love that.
You ask it questions and it gives you rude and sarcastic answers.
Oh, that's great.
That is so great.
So let me go dig that up.
Okay, I think, am I sharing the Arcjet website successfully?
Yes, you are.
Holla! They updated Gradual. I was thinking about leaving, not because I don't love Gradual, but just because it's a little bit cumbersome for what I thought I needed. But they just did an update and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sucked in. So I think I have to stay. Anyways, that was a side note. I love Gradual as a platform. So glad that we're screen sharing. Really great community platform we get to use because they're great. And this is Arcjet. Has anyone on the call, obviously besides David, who's been more closely tied and engaged with that company, has anyone else heard of Arcjet or seen it around?
First time I heard about it from you, so or
Yeah.
it was from you.
Likewise.
All right, cool. Came across my plate as a client, and I really, really, really like the founder. He also is one of the either co-founder or founder of council.dev, if you're familiar with that newsletter. So it's interesting because he has like this 30,000 subscriber newsletter that, you know, it's all these devs that could very easily pick up and want to use Arcjet. Is like has a value for nearly everyone that has a modern JS website, essentially, at least as public. And so long story short, like I have so much admiration for the actual founder as well, which is why I brought it into one of our live audits. I haven't really necessarily decided how to focus these audits. We've just had a lot of fun with them. And so long story short, I'm just doing this because I wanted more people to see Arcjet. And I think that it's a good tool and I wanted to hear what all of y'all think. So with all of that being said, yeah.
I don't know if I just put the link in the chat. I don't know if it even still works. I wrote this like a year ago with them, and like they had to release 3 new versions while I was writing it because I found so many bugs in it. So
that's incredible though. Like that's the stuff that like that's what brings the good juices forward, right? Is addressing those. Yeah. Awesome. So homepage, I'd love to hear what folks think. Like, let's kind of dive into sort of the deciphering. I sort of have given you a little bit of teasers here in regards to maybe what they do, but I'd love to get a gut reaction on maybe what folks think that Arcjet is, how this messaging resonates with them, and sort of, I guess, just generally how it sits with you as you look at it.
So I'll go ahead and call out the thing I called out to you first when I saw this, Tessa. You know, as an engineer on this, I'm seeing all of these package installs, you know, npmi, Arcjet Nest, or Node, or the Dino ad. You know, you look at all of these and there's no spot.
Wait, like right here though? Before you say anything else, Chris, but in the homepage, like right here? Because we're sticking to right here.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Okay, keep going. Oh, you're saying as it's cycling through. Got it.
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that.
That GIF is exciting and it catches the eye. But if I'm using Dino, that Dino one was pretty late in there. If I'm using Dino, oh no, you know, do they not support me? Because I've got to sit and wait and watch this GIF cycle through. And nowhere on their website do they list all of their packages.
Okay, I like that. I think there's definitely something, because the GIF is fun, right? And hypothetically,
it catches your eye.
It does. And I think you'd be scrolling pretty quickly, so you make a valid point. But I think they're listed right here. Did you see this by chance? I know we hadn't scrolled yet.
But that's not the package paths. And so
yeah, okay, I get what you're saying.
If I went to my terminal, you know, I don't know what I need. And if I'm on Nest or Next or Svelte, if I only know about Arcjet Node, I might only install Arcjet Node and I'm already off to a bad start.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Okay. But does the homepage give you, let's say, you know, libraries and kind of association to your stack aside? Like what's kind of the vibe?
To be fair, I would never just go to a homepage and see that and try to install it for a project. I would absolutely go to the docs first.
So,
yeah. Valid. So I think like more objectively, what I'm kind of looking for is like, how does this, I like that feedback because you make a valid point. These, you know, this is, you scroll through quickly, right? And so it's kind of a missed opportunity, although fun. And I think could be take the same essence of fun and shift it into a different way to do it. Does like Chris, I think, thinking about it from sort of the, yes, resonance to what you're doing, but from the other messaging of like bot detection, rate limiting, email validation, that kind of stuff, like, does anything stick with anyone and like, ooh, yeah, like, oh, I've had to struggle with that, or like, does it hit you in any kind of pain point relation?
It's got an excitement factor, right? Because it sounds
Yep.
like this is the whole package. If I was doing the design for this section, I would want links to each one of those things so that I could go see what is the bot detection, what does that look like, what does rate limiting look like, so forth.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. I get what you're going with there.
I agree with Chris that it's exciting. Like, I think they did a really good job of pulling you in to be like, oh, let me look at more of this. But I agree with that. Even if it's a 1-page thing, just link down to the different sections where they discuss bot detection, rate limiting, things like that.
Okay. So you're saying from that approach, you're like, one of those things might resonate with you more than the other. So you might be opt to want to click on that to be like, just take me more to email validation, because that's like my pain.
Yeah, exactly. What if I want to do that and attack protection isn't so important for what I'm building, right?
Yep. Okay. I get what you're saying there.
Think about how you get to this page, right? You get to this page because you're searching for a need, right? Let's say I need email validation in my app. Okay, cool. I found this framework called Arcjet. It says it has email validation. Well, show me the details for what email validation is so I can determine if it's what I need.
See, you just brought up such a good point. Like, if I can just reiterate what Chris said, when a developer thinks about that, right, like what is it that they are searching that they're going to land on? And I think you hit it right on the head. And I think that that's a good path of thinking about the journey, right? Coming in and they're here for likely one of those types of things. So how do we get them there as quick as possible? I like that. Okay. Anyone else have anything else they want to share, sort of how it resonated in the beginning?
I honestly don't. I mean, this is the initial sort of splash screen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yep.
It's not, how to put this, it's not a resource, right? It's not a developer resource. It's not something I'm coming to for an answer. It's a starting place, and I'll start there, and then I'm going to dive into the website. I'm going to start digging around. I'm going to click on, probably the first place I'm going to click is docs. Yeah. I'm going to pay very little attention to this splash screen because it's just that. It's a giant marketing screen. So I'm going to pay almost no attention to it.
Got it. So the question,
just how I go at developer products is I'm going to go right to the docs or to the demo or something like that.
I agree. Show of hands, because most of you are on video. Otherwise, if you want to, I'm not sure if there is emoji, but like, is that also your path? If you're in the call, to just go straight to the doc link. By the way, it's also my path. But I think I do it because I'm like, developer experience. What is the developer experience like? And I'm like, is it me as a DevRel person or me as a dev?
I think it depends, right? Like, if I know what I'm looking for, then great. But if I'm shopping around for options, maybe I want to see more of what Arcjet has to offer.
Okay.
Exactly that, right? If I'm shopping for options, I'm pretty busy. I imagine you guys are pretty busy. I'm not going to go fishing through the docs to the nth degree when I'm shopping for an option.
That's valid.
Right, but
I think even when I'm shopping,
I'm not going to blame that. I'm not going to base my decision on the the first page graphic either. Very least I'm going to scroll down and see what else is on the main site. And
absolutely, I wasn't saying I would stop considering it based on that. We were looking at this spot. When you land here, what thoughts do you go through? And so that's what thoughts I went through.
Should we, okay, so first off, I think the big question, right? Does this intrigue us to go forward? Are we intrigued?
Yep.
I think a few audits ago, the one I was referring to with Ryan, we were kind of not intrigued, and Nick knows what we're talking about. Nick, they actually came around and like asked about working with me, and I was like, hey, funny enough, we did an audit. So long story short, we weren't really compelled to move forward, but we did because we were also curious, like, what is this product? And I think with Arcjet, it's different, right? And like, feel free to jump in, Nick, here too, and share your feedback on kind of what you initially think. But wrapping up, I want to move forward. I want to know more. I'm like, what? Okay, wait. I can actually feel compelled to understand or not really understand, but implement security, because it is like, I think you're still muted, Nick.
Yeah, Nick, you're muted.
Sorry. I was expecting the microphone to be red if it was muted.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, sorry, DX feedback.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stop. No, I think seeing it's not so much a call to action, but the animated GIF of like the npm install, bun install, whatever. Already, I'm just like, okay, let's go see what this is, and then I'll probably. I mean, at the same time, it's kind of interesting because it's a security product, so you probably shouldn't just install stuff willy-nilly. But anyways,
I agree with that. Okay, very cool. All right, so we'll give the homepage sort of a quick glance, and then I think we can dive into the docs because that's sort of like the good stuff. But as we're thinking about this, like objectively, if I can be slightly selfish, I would like to understand who would make the decision around buying Arcjet. So if there's any insights that anyone might have as they're sort of reviewing this homepage and even just the rest of the audit, that's where my head is at, is I'm really trying to put on that cap of like, okay, who's implementing and who's buying? I think in some cases they're the same audience. I think in some cases they're different. But as we peek through the rest of the homepage, feel free to dive in respectively, of course, and share your candid feedback.
So I'll call out, I love when you're looking through this and you're seeing on the left, you have your tech stack and you're looking through the defense, and you have on the right, the index. You know, you're getting a very clear perspective of, hey, in this stack, how do I solve this problem? And it shows you the code, and you're just diving right on in. You know, this appeals to a lot of the audiences that would be reviewing this, whether it's a director of engineering, whether it's a head of security, whether it's a software engineer. You know, it walks you through, and it's simple, and they're showing how simple it is to use it.
I agree. I fell in love with this.
Yeah, they had this up when I was working with them, and I loved this part of their website. It's just really, it's easy to see sort of kind of what you're going to get.
I agree. And I love that. So I have this kind of like approach where I think about homepages, and I'm always like, prove it in code. And I think that they've done that really, really well here, where they've like proven sort of the ease of implementation and what that looks like. Because, you know, the biggest thing is like, it can be overwhelming when we're like, okay, great. Yeah, we got here because of email validation, to speak to the example earlier, right? But then when we landed here, we're like, how difficult is this actually to use? And like, I'm a big fan of going to the docs and going to the getting started guide. Like, right, what is that guide? Tell me, what is it? How complicated does it look? Is it like quick? And I think that this code sort of does a replacement of that. And I'm still on the homepage. And so I really got excited about that. Yeah, jump in, Nick.
I'm just looking at the, like if you go from the homepage to the live example. So I went there and I see them in action. But I would have expected to see some code associated to what I'm running. Like just as like, hey, okay, sign up form protection. It checks for the MX record. Let me just go copy pasta that in just to try it out. Like I know they have it in the docs, but like I think that could be handy here. Just like in terms of, it's a small piece of friction, but
got it.
I like think that that's awesome, because you land in a pseudo demo and it shows the value of the software.
Yeah, and it gives you just a quick dose, a quick look at, hey, what do I need to do? What I want to do, and I think that's the best part. You're not. Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. You get a quick look at seeing what you need to use for exactly what you want to do, and that's, you're not digging through docs. Like this drop down form is, I think, such a good idea of getting you familiar with how you're going to work with something.
You guys are looking at this still, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I like it. I don't know if the screen will show the video and the audio, so we'll just try. Can you hear it? Or am I the only one that can hear it?
Yeah, no, I can't hear it.
Okay, well, we'll skip that because it'll be weird.
Okay. I could lip read horribly if you want.
Any thoughts on sort of this section?
Actually, it looks like some of the rate limiting support is changed, like Prisma. I'm like, that gets me because I use Prisma a lot, and it can leave you open to a lot of abuse if you're not careful.
Got it. Okay. I like that. I think that, so when I had some folks, that kind of help on my team actually go through an audit, they later had saw, and we'll kind of get through this, but they later had saw different sort of brand associations. And it's interesting that you call that out, David, too, because that is just a constant thing of feedback that I've been seeing is like associated brands or platforms or integrations next to each other to be like, that's me, that's my stack, like that's my tools,
Right.
And I think that that's really interesting too. I tend to like go, if I'm starting to look at something and I'm like, oh, I'm jiving with this. This might be a thing. Then I'll like be like, where's the integrations? Is it in the docs? Is there a link to it? Where, like, who is it that they're already built with? And I immediately go to that page where I think that honestly, it's kind of dumb that I take that step because it's in the messaging in some cases, but I will just jump right past it and go straight to an integrations type of or docs page that has it. All right, cool. Integrations that kind of hit anybody like, oh, I got a site on one of those, so that makes me feel something.
I was happy to see that right there. I mean, honestly, it was just another sign you should just jump right in, It's like another invitation to use it. Because let's face it, Vercel and Fly are pretty damn popular, so.
I love that. So I launched my playbook today, which has my framework for DevRel in it. And my framework is essentially super quick, knowing your problem fit. And then it's discoverability, credibility, aha moment, and advocacy, but it's customer advocacy, not us as dev advocates. And inside of the credibility section of the playbook, I I'm reiterate how important it is to continually build it and to maintain it. And you exactly spoke to what I say in the playbook because you were like, it's another notch of credit. It's like, I feel like as developers are going through something, you're like either building those notches in a good way or you're building those notches in a bad way. Does that feel relatable?
Yeah, this is one of those things that as I scroll through, it's like, okay, Prisma and SQLite. Oh, Vercel and Fly. It's like it's, as you said, it's sort of building on, this is my stack, right? And the more I see of my stack, the more enthusiastic I'm going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, to clarify what I meant is I meant like, do you all get like that too, where you're like, okay, you're either building or you're like degrading trust, right? As you start to like look at a tool. That's how I look at it.
Yes. Yep. I understand.
Yep. All right. Cool. All right. I think docs. Is that where we're going next?
Do it.
My dog is being obnoxiously needy right now. All right. Ooh, I like the labels. I don't know because they stick out so much, but those pills are like, they just draw me in.
Did yours open it on any tab? Or that too, yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. This did not transfer. Share this tab instead. There we go.
There we go.
Thank you. Those pills that instantly draw you in.
Yeah, it's a great look, I think.
They've got a great Oreo effect going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Okay, cool. I'm going to let my doggy out, but we'll kind of just, I think instantly sort of like sucked in from that regard. Chloe, go outside. Come on, go. Okay, maybe I'm not. Okay, you navigate me because I've already been around here and I've got some predisposed opinions. So where do we want to start as we're kind of engaging? What's kind of these first questions that we're maybe thinking about Arcjet as like, we looked through the homepage, we saw what it could do. And like, do any of you have urgent questions that you feel like you want to answer? I'm sure you're answering them behind the scenes.
I always go straight to examples and blueprints. Like, what do you got? What kind of example app do you have that I can adapt to what I'm doing? Right.
Okay, love that.
I tout this a lot as a developer advocate of like, developers are looking for a solution, right? They're not looking to read your docs. They have a problem to solve, and their app has a problem that they need to solve, and they're trying to find the best solution for it as quickly as possible so they can move on to the next thing. And so the more quickly I can get somebody to a place where they can see a solution to their problem, the better off. And this would be from Arcjet's standpoint, the better off Arcjet will be, the faster they can get somebody to that. Here's your solution. Oh yeah. Okay, cool. I can use that. All right.
Yep. Anyone else?
I look at it from the perspective that when I land on this page, there's 3 quote unquote entry points that grab my eye. David, I 100% agree with you. The examples is one of those entry points. Another one of those entry points is that feature list, because I'm going to be looking at it and saying, oh, hey, I made it here because I was looking for rate limiting. And I'm going to click on rate limiting. Or I made it here because I was looking for a security framework for Node.js with Express. And I'm going to click on the Node.js with Express because that's my tech stack, right? And so my feedback just landing on this page is highlight those entry points, because your 3 entry points are totally different based on the who and why.
Yeah. All right. Where else would everyone else navigate to? Yeah, jump in.
I think he just hit the nail on the head for me personally.
I think the one thing I would mention is just it's good there's examples there, but I'd add something after like the remix one, say like don't see your framework of choice or something, suggest let us know or something, whether that creates a GitHub issue or just contacts them. And this also just kind of gives a nice vibe with open source too. Maybe somebody will create a template, who knows, I don't know, but
actually that's a really good point.
That.
Yeah, I mean, on their homepages they say Django, Ruby on Rails, Laravel. Maybe make that like a different pill, and with a just make it you can't interact with it. Yeah, exactly. Make it unfilled in with an outline, right? Something that just shows that it's coming soon. And if they have a roadmap for other things that they're doing, they could link to that as well.
So
I agree. They could have a wait list behind that too. And then there's also a pill for like what Nick said, where it's like, tell us what we should build next. Because I think that jump in.
Sorry. If they're trying to grow the way that it looks like they're trying to grow, they might want to separate this by language, because the docs for JavaScript across all of these here will mostly be consistent. Yeah. And then when you're in Python, it's going to be a totally different world. And so, especially as they're adding options and implementation patterns, it's going to get real hairy real quick. I agree, maybe gray out the pill or give a tooltip over it, coming soon, January 2025 or something like that. But as they add more, let's say they add Go, and then let's say they add, C++.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
You're going to be in a bad spot.
Yeah, pills are only going to get you so far. There's only so many options that you can do them with, right?
I agree.
It looks good for now.
Yeah, I think, sort of like anyone who may listen to this later who is like kind of thinking about this, if I just to add like a little wisdom here, is one of the things that I talked about with this client specifically was starting to understand the personas of the people that come in, because eventually that will be something that will be like a defining factor, right? If he can recognize the persona coming in from wherever they come in from or wherever they navigate to, then guide them to like, oh, this is JavaScript land, or this is PHP land, or like whatever that might look like. So I agree, definite future pain points for sure, as they start to expand, because really like options are endless for Arcjet to start to expand. It's like, where do they go first?
Absolutely.
Right?
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just real quick. My only other call out was going to be, I would reorder features and examples. I would put examples lower, because those examples, while very valuable, if I'm looking at an example because I wanted to do, rate limiting, well, how many clicks do I have to get to find the rate limiting example?
Yep. I think this is like a matter of opinion, right? What are you coming here for? What was the pain point that you came in from? And that's, I think, even to trying to understand the path in which someone came in from a Google result of a pain point, right? Where can you navigate them over to? Because I agree. If you're here for a specific problem.
I think though that, and we didn't get there just yet, but if you click on rate limiting and go to quick start, they let you just
Yep.
choose, bond, next, node, or whatever at the top and drop down, or in this
Right.
case on the right because it's the screen size. So I feel like it kind of alleviates that option, but I see where you're coming from too. But again, like having all the options for all of us that work different ways, I think they're
Yeah.
doing a pretty good job of.
Yeah, and what you were mentioning before, Tessa, about the personas, there's definitely personas for sure, because
Yeah.
realistically, people that are probably doing the JavaScript ones are probably front end developers, somewhat full stack, whereas somebody who's like a Ruby dev, they're probably more back end, and so like you could cater like towards that. And
Yep.
the other thing I mentioned is like there's the suggest your project, your suggest your framework, like I was saying. But I've seen this, if you, like for example on Clerk, the auth zauth n service, they have frameworks they support, but they also have just a vanilla JavaScript version of it. So like say my framework isn't supported, I could still, because I imagine under the hood most of those frameworks are using pretty much the same code. So if they surfaced just a general JavaScript version, then people could actually just build on that too if it's not supported their framework of choice.
Yes, I love that feedback. You always bring such fire feedback. I agree with
Yeah,
that.
I wonder if they're supporting TypeScript yet. They weren't previously,
okay.
and I haven't
Yeah,
seen
that's
any
good.
reference to that.
Yeah, that's kind of table stakes a bit today. That's a good call out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can I mention something that I forgot to touch on earlier?
Yeah.
It's small, but you had to share a different tab, right? So navigating to docs, do you normally expect it to open in a new tab?
Ooh, that's a good question. I expect it to be in a subdomain. And I think
Yes,
that it
and it
depends
is.
on, yeah. And in my websites, I always open anything that's not the root domain in a new window. So I think by natural, my docs would open, at least in how I build. But I think there is a fundamental question here of how people expect them. Do you expect a smoother, seamless, not a new window? Because why?
Yeah, I mean the same thing goes for the blogs. So of the 3 links on their homepage, and I know I'm going backwards, but pricing
Yeah,
is
it's
the only
okay.
one that links to it's not in a new tab. And so it's just a little bit like I understand the different domain, right? Like I do that as well if it's an external site, but in my mind, the docs and the blog, despite them being a subdomain, it's still the Arcjet umbrella. So
Yep.
that was a little surprising to me. It's not a big deal, but we were confused why, you weren't showing the right screen, right? So if we're not expecting that, I don't know, just a little weird UX there.
Yep.
What do others
I
think?
think, yeah, I actually get where so when you think about it like that, I got to go share the other screen because otherwise I'm like going to lose you all from my share before I exit it. I think when you think about that, right, if you're clicking from a main menu, it should stay in window unless it like is really truly a CTA that's like go to a community or go somewhere else. But I actually really agree if it's another brand platform that is sort of in this way hosted, I think, yeah, it should probably stay in the same window. It's good
And if you
advice.
want to, I don't know about anyone else, but I like use command click all the time to open things in different
Mm-hmm.
tabs if I want to.
That's valid.
But yeah. Yeah.
That is valid.
One quick call out, circling back to the TypeScript point, they do expose types, and I don't know, I haven't looked deeply through their docs. I don't know how well they've called that out. They should.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's good feedback. Oh, now the example's open in GitHub, by the way. I'm sure y'all have already noticed that, but I haven't clicked it yet. Interesting. See, I really like that, which then again kind of does open to another place, but I think it's in this case, it's like, this is perfect. Open to a new window because I still have the docs in one window and I've got GitHub in the other window.
I agree. Yeah.
I'm going to call out one thing about the GitHub examples. There's like just having worked at Netlify, seeing this, but also Vercel does this. They have a deploy to Vercel or deploy to Netlify button that you can just put right in the README, and then that way you don't even have to clone this. It just goes straight if you want to do that. So
I love that. Okay, that's great feedback. I think any point, right, if we can speed it up, and that's like the key thing is like, what is the like sort of flow and journey for a developer? Then how do we optimize it, right? How do we make it faster? How do we get to that value point as fast as possible? All right, where should we click around to next? What are we thinking? I don't know, Chris, if you had any chance. We kind of actually just kept talking, so I don't know if you ended up digging into actually building this out.
Didn't.
Okay.
I cloned your repo and I did the npmi and then I stopped.
That is all good. All good. All right, where I think next we'd probably sort of start to dive in, wouldn't we? Is there any other questions we'd feel like we'd want to answer? I mean, probably dig into the docs deeper, but what feels natural as the next journey if you were like, well, okay, actually, better question. Does anyone have anything they'd want to integrate this into that's like live right now? And then if so this is kind of the thinking point, like why? Like what did you see that compelled you to think that this would help or that you need this?
Yeah, the thing I'm wondering about this is it depends on your team, but like for the JavaScript stuff, I feel like like I was mentioning before, it's more front endy, probably. I'm generalizing, but so like I could see like me saying like, okay, let me install this, but like I was saying before, for like Django or like Ruby, or if they already have APIs and stuff, I feel like I guess my point is like, how do you convince backend devs that this is good? Maybe like because like like a lot of orgs might already have like rate limiting might already be in place and stuff. So like, and I'm not saying the product's terrible. That's not what I mean at all. It's just like I get that this makes it easier for certain things, but I also wonder like if in the grand scheme of like a company's like, you know, infrastructure and their back end, like does this play nice with that? I don't know, and I'm just like kind of throwing that out there. I'm not saying it's bad, like I said, but
Yep.
One call out I would make is each of these features are implemented on the Node side of it, and so it is backend JavaScript, with the exception of the form protection, maybe.
Yeah. No, I'm aware of that. It's just more like I guess I feel like there's definitely back-end devs for Node.js for sure, obviously, but I just feel like just the vibe I'm getting, which is not obviously something I can quantify, is it feels more like this is to help out somebody who's like somewhat full stack. That's what it feels like to me, at least for the Node stuff, but I could be way off.
Absolutely. This feels like you're pulling something out of the toolbox that solves these, end problems, and it's quick and it's easy. And
Yeah.
I think that's the vibe they're going for, and they want to reach the other languages. I would argue that front end versus back end dev is almost irrelevant at that point.
That's what we kind of see with a lot of tools coming out lately, right?
100%.
Yeah, I get what you're saying though, in terms of like the ease of implementation and seeing its capabilities, you know, like when you're thinking about either, and the complication, right, of like bringing in sort of a different backend stack. There's just a much complicated process of like, I want to test out a tool or I want to see how it can come in. I think that's where like it is like you're knowing your target audience is key, right? I think for them to go like, if they were going to like a Django conference, I'd be like, what are you doing? Right? Like, and not that they shouldn't do that one day, but like, I think, and that's, you know, coming back to sort of that problem fit that we talked about earlier. It's like, you know, knowing where you find that like sweet spot and like who needs this solution, right? Which, by the way, just to give y'all a little bit of feedback, because we went through our sprint already, so we narrowed it down. And our focus is actually in the AI and the ML space, because they're hitting all these like GPU usages, right? And so their costs and their actual infrastructure costs are high. And so this is like a way to sort of decrease the traffic flow, just generally all around. And so, long story short, yeah.
I think again, it matters it's a great call out of JavaScript or Python as an entry point by language, because your implementation will be different. Your flow will be different. There are some things in each language that are easier to approach. And, so I think your flow for the docs has to differ as well because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I just brought up a new screen share, so I thought this was pretty cool. The founder shared this with me, and generally, this excites me. Some of you on this call already know that I've been like messing around with trying to patch together what I do behind the scenes to like turn it into a tool to like more efficiently kind of do what I do to engage with devs. And I have completely been dragging my feet on building it because some of it honestly would have required AI to like really understand and do. But now I'm like, this is here. So what's my excuse now? But long story short, what I'm sharing in the screen share, and I threw it in the chat, to me was like, whoa, okay, maybe, just maybe, I could pull out my dev skills again. I could figure this out, because it's like this beautiful start state that is very opinionated, but I'm like really digging the opinions in it. So towards the end of this here, I wanted to know if anyone's seen this. Do they know of others that are like this? Because this is freaking cool. And what are your general thoughts? Bye, David, if you're still here to say goodbye to.
This is the first
this
I
was
hear
great.
of it.
Thanks so much for doing this, Tess. I'd love to do more of these with you. These are great.
Every Friday. I'm putting them on my calendar now. So every Friday they will be happening.
Awesome. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah, sorry, I was saying this is first I hear of the project, but I'm familiar with Turbo Repo, but not NextForge.
Yep. Cool. Anyone else seen it?
So I'm not familiar with Turbo Repo, but as I look at this, I get the same vibe. If you guys remember Yeoman in the past, this feels like Yeoman grew up.
I don't know what that is, but I love the...
Yeoman was a CLI generator that would be a project template bootstrapper type thing.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Very relatable then.
Yeah, the NextForge. Yeah, well, the Turbo Repo is a monorepo tool from Vercel, and but yeah, NextForge. Yeah, I guess I have to look at the docs here. Set up.
Oh yeah, I can click around a little too. Wait, if I can find the right window. Okay. Here we go. Wait on here. So the reason I brought this up is like the founder shared this with me, and essentially they like integrated Arcjet, and I was like, oh goodness.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Right? And so in my mind, I'm like, what a beautiful way to drive awareness to their platform. I don't have to talk about Arcjet. I don't have to be unauthentic. I can be like, boom, look at this. And I haven't seen one of these, at least not in a hot minute. And I used to see these obviously like back in the day where we didn't have all the cool things we have now to build stuff. And so I'm like, this really has me thinking about sort of distribution and discovery and how this is such a beautiful path to drive awareness of a dev tool. I'm curious if anyone knows of others. And yeah.
Are they partnered with Arcjet at all, or they just happen to see Arcjet and they just said, hey, let's just create an integration?
This is totally open source. So Hayden is the one that created this project, totally open source. He just has made some opinions and some decisions on in the project, right? And brought in those things. And so like Clark is in there. There's a couple other, I mean, obviously, right? Like you could argue there's a million different changes they could make to it, but I think that's probably why people don't make these, right? Is because you do have to make a really opinionated decision in order to create such a starter state.
Yeah, it's a good and bad thing because, like, for example, Ruby on Rails, they have conventions and like it works well, but it's opinionated. The problem with like React in the early days was it was always like just do whatever you want, and like that caused analysis paralysis. And so like I think it's totally fine to like clearly Hayden made these decisions because like this is what I think works best, and maybe somebody else will too. Because the other thing, like if you complain about this, are you going to build it yourself? Probably not.
Right.
I love that.
that does raise a thought in my mind, right? If Arcjet is deeply opinionated for its implementation, is that going to cause issues later for people who want to use it in ways perhaps differently than, say, this template?
I don't think Arcjet is opinionated. I think this project is.
Okay.
I think Arcjet very much has a feature set that it offers, which you could consider to be opinionated. But I think the opinion is more like, you could definitely, obviously, we could disagree on this too. But I do think this project itself is very opinionated in who it's choosing.
Sure.
It's very much. Do you personally think, though, that Arcjet's product is opinionated? Because I could
I don't
agree
know
with
yet.
you as well.
I don't know yet. I do have another topic to call out after you're done with Turbo Repo.
Yeah. Is there, I guess, for sort of any other essence, I think this sounds like it's kind of it's a little unique, at least nowadays, in sort of its like very opinionated start state. So that seemed to be
if Arcjet likes it, I mean, obviously they built an integration with it, or Hayden built it, whatever. I would almost say, like, they can add a CDA to deploy Arcjet in a next Forge project if they felt so inclined to do so.
That's a good
I
call.
like that. I really like that. Thank you for the tip. That's really helpful. Okay, cool. Anything else on Arcjet? Any other sort of feelings?
One more thought around Arcjet's docs.
Yeah.
As looking through it, you don't get a good vibe as to how configurable the things are, the features are, until you're digging into the reference and you're seeing code level configuration. You're not seeing a lot of, description of, hey, how do I do bot protection and what does this feature mean? When you click in reference, you're seeing code attributed to configuration. And that's good. As an engineer, that's really good. But what does it mean in each spot? Their descriptions are not super in depth from a generalized perspective.
Almost
Good,
like, what is their bot protection doing?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
What path did you take to? So here's where I think there's 2 points here. 1 point, would you immediately take that path to go into it, or would you have walked through the other pages before you went to the reference, and then therefore the reference would have made sense? Would you naturally have gone to reference and it doesn't make sense?
Well, twofold, right? So earlier when we kicked off this call, we were talking about, hey, what would make me choose this as a developer, right?
Yeah.
And of course, these features are great on a surface level, but my definition of rate limiting might be different than yours. And so if I can't know what their feature supports until I'm digging into the configuration, and when I click on configuration, I'm seeing very tech level things, the only person who can make the decision for this is the developer.
Okay. Interesting.
Does that make sense, or am I crazy?
No, it makes sense. I think if I was in that headspace, I'd go click around and I'd be like, okay, cool. This is deep. I need some more information. So then I'd take it a step back and go to concepts potentially. But I'm not saying the answer's here. Sure,
but there's nothing in their concepts that directly points to.
Okay, you're saying feature level information in docs, but not in a bad way, right? But just in a way of bye, Nick. But just in a way of understandability because you're in it.
Correct. It's a little cryptic for the non-developer.
Got it. Okay. It's just lacking insights because you're like, boom, I'm in the docs, and then you're like, whoa, I lost my context because I'm in the docs now.
Well, not only that, but if you go into, say, rate limiting and you look at configuration and you have user ID, you see this characteristics user ID. Well, there isn't a lot of explanation to a non-technical person what a characteristic is, because you see option and your eyes go a little wide if you don't know what you're looking at. And then you start scrolling down, you'll see user ID if you scroll down just a touch more.
Oh, got it. I get what you're saying down here.
It's just very tech heavy, and I get this and you get this and developers will get this, But if you're trying to sell this if I was to bring this to my head of security who hasn't written code in 10 years, he's going to look at this and say, well, what am I getting out of this rate limiting? What are my options? And I'm going to have to go through this and read through it and make notes that he can look at and understand.
I get what you're saying.
It feels like they need a page, not in the docs, but on the, the regular website of selling their features almost to non-technical users.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like product pages.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that could be where those links we talked about at the beginning of like what, link to each feature in the header.
Okay, I get what you're saying. They're more feature pages in regards to breaking that down. Okay, I like that. One thing that I had talked about with this client specifically, as we were talking about sort of like user and buyers, is that I feel like the biggest advocate for this type of a tool is going to be like the user, right? The developer that's like, like I'm going to bring this in, like this is cool. I don't have to know security. It's easy to implement, etc. Right? All the integrations are there. But then they still have to like go get this approval, and it's a security platform. So it's like a little scary and like, I can't just say yes to someone. So we had talked about creating sort of like equipping them with the information they needed to go to whoever their buyer was, of like, here's the specs, here's the security stuff, here's the, in terms of like, even like, SOC 2, blah, 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 like Fed, whatever it is that they need in that regard. Chris, do you think that if we were to sort of build that out so those users felt like they had almost like a package of resources to provide to that sort of buyer, would that be valuable? And if so, how would you see those being delivered best?
I think that would be valuable. I'm going to recall a point that I had said to you when I looked through this originally. Your customer for this product, or when you look at it in the series of features, series of products, your customer is going to say, hey, I need rate limiting, but I don't necessarily need email validation. And so you have different entry points for different customers, but you need to be able to explain it so that they can sell it to the non-technical folks, and that'll work.
Got it. I like that. Okay. So
sorry. One idea for that is I work right now at a government contractor. And so if I'm looking at suppliers and manufacturers to obviously buy stuff from, a lot of times on the website, they'll say like, we're, for example, AS 9102 approved and, whatever. They put those credentials on their site, whether it's in the footer or on a security page. So like that would be a good option for Arcjet to provide, maybe me to go to this head of security, be like, hey, I think this is a good option for us. Here are their credentials. What do you think?
I love that. Okay, so if I were to create a footer link and it was a quick link, I know what you're saying in terms of like sometimes there's icons, sometimes it's like they're all listed. But if I were to create or suggest that they create a link that would take them to sort of a page of all the things, right, of all the sort of accreditations, all the whatever licensing that they have, what would that link be called? And like, would that be enough, or would you want to see the logos in the footer?
I think just like a page called whatever, certificates, accreditations, security, I don't know,
compliance,
metrics or whatever.
Maybe, or...
Yeah, compliance is a good one.
That's a good one.
That's
compliance
a really good one.
resonates, right? Okay.
Yeah, because like even stuff like SOC 2, which is like, I'm sure they're SOC 2 because like every company has to be SOC 2 now. But like people mention that on their site.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's a part of equipping, right? That's a part of equipping the users to be able to go to those buyers and be like, here's all the stuff. And then they can see quickly their SOC 2, their whatever. Because I do agree. I think that's going to be sort of and that's actually kind of the, for the next 90 days that we strategize is like, let's start to verify and validate the actual, buyer versus user. What are those insights there? Are there pain points? What do they need to feel equipped? Or is it really like straightforward? And it's like, no, actually in the AI and the ML space, they're moving so fast that they're just like, boop, if it's got these accreditations, doesn't matter. Let's just do it. The cost is low. We need to save money. And they're just plopping things in, right? Because they're not even when they're at big companies, by the way, right now. It's interesting to hear. So it's all about sort of, I think, that use case. But
yeah,
I'm curious too. Do they mention what kind of company size they're targeting? Because like, for example, like I used to work at Autodesk, and if somebody came with this, there's so many different divisions and stuff. Like I don't think something like this would go company wide probably. So like I'm curious if they're focusing on, you know, small to mid size, and because which is not a bad thing. It's just like, you know, if you get more laser focused, that could be helpful too. But like,
yeah, we actually went in and did all that. That's what I do in my sprints, is that we like niche it down, because I'm like, for the next 90 days is what we plan out. And I'm like, for the next 90 days, it's one thing or like one area or one focus. And so, but honestly, like the founders, he's so great. Like his experience is already great. Like everything's been great. And so he was very tailored into that. And so, yes, very much so. And that anything before Series A, they haven't felt the pain points of the need for rate limiting or bot protection or sort of any of those kind of things, because the traffic and the usage isn't there. But around Series A, they start to feel those pain points, but they're not large enough to want to bring in a full like security offering or a CISO or sort of those other next steps. And so it's very niche in that kind of, you know, early, I guess, starting to evolve. I don't know, is Series A early or mid? I feel like pre-seed and seed are early. Like is Series A kind of like skirting towards mid? But either way, kind of somewhere in that range of an A to C. Yeah, that's true. That's true. A to C is our hypothesis. Team sizes are, you know, in some cases we had one team size where we felt like it could be 1 to 2, but in most cases we felt team sizes was likely like, you know, 2 to 5, 2 to 10, depending on kind of what they're building. Maybe a little bigger. Mostly devs, obviously, because it's developer first. So likely not dealing with CISOs, because they're going to want something bigger, better, stronger, or maybe not, right? Maybe CISOs are like, whoa, wait, actually, for the infrastructure we have, Arcjet is sufficient.
So when I think about if I were to use something like Arcjet, you know, I've done a few startups. My immediate is, I have this problem. I don't have time to solve it. Arcjet, 10 minutes. I see that smack dab in the middle of the screen. Great, cool. I can check that off and go focus on what I need to focus on. And so it definitely caters to that, you know, small, medium, maybe. You know, it also caters to the, you know, oh shit moment of,
Yep.
I'm getting hit. I need rate limiting.
Now.
So,
like
yes.
now.
Yeah. And so it caters to that small to medium very much.
I love that you said that, because our approach is to be in where the dev channels are and engaging and waiting for those like moments of stress to be like, hey, here's a case. At least this is what we're approaching in the next 90 days, to do that and to create the case studies of like, oh, look, here's how someone solved this. Oh, here's someone else's pain point. Like he has like a quote that one site actually decreased their Vercel bill by like 66%. And I'm like, mic drop.
Yep. Put that loud and proud.
The other thing that screams to me as a feature they should look at is intelligent caching, because that falls into this bucket of features that they have here.
Now you're getting a little, I mean, like I get what you're saying, but I'm also sort of like, at what depth does that come in and where does that align?
Well, it's a whole host of problems too. But, you know, it falls into that bucket because, you know, if I'm using this with Express, I'm bolting each one of these things into it. Well, caching is the natural progression.
I get what you're saying with that. Okay. Interesting. Okay, that's good feedback. All right. Any other last words before we wrap up today? Ido, did you want to jump in and introduce yourself? Or, I mean, like no pressure at all, but also want to give the space if you want to. All good.
You're muted. If they were talking.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm Ido Evergreen, and I think this should be my first meeting or the first audit currently in this community, right? And I'm just observing and trying to understand what's going on here right now. Yeah. So far it's been interesting. I think there's been a lot of exciting things to learn and getting to hear from the experienced individuals, right, about documentations, building developer tools. It's been really really exciting, and I'm really happy to be here.
Yay. I love that. All right. Well, I think that's a wrap for the day. I kind of didn't go on about all the things that I was like so excited to tell everyone that we should build, but I don't know. Maybe that means that we need to have another developer session rambling about what Tessa should build. Cause I'm like, I think it's time. I think I got to pull the trigger now. And I'm like, this next Forge project makes it feel approachable. And I think it's time.
Yeah, I was looking over Next Forge and I'm like, I might play with this just to move things faster when you're starting
I'm
off, right?
definitely gonna play with that.
Yeah, I kind of like a lot of their opinionated decisions on the tools they used, so it would be fun or easier than setting everything up, by myself, which I'm usually a fan of, but not when time is of the essence.
If you do it and you feel compelled to screen record, at least when you get to the Arcjet section, I would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it. Hell, it might be live streamed.
Oh, I love that. Tell me then if you do.
Yeah, for sure.
That would be fun. Honestly, that would be really good for me because, I'm going to stop the recording so we don't I don't keep rambling in a recording. 1 second.